Welcome to Real Estate Rank IQ, the place we break down the major forces shaping the housing market. And today, we're digging into Blackstone, the trillion-dollar giant that's buying up homes all across the country. We're going to unpack their playbook and what it really means for you. So let's just jump right in. You've got this financial giant making these huge plays in residential real estate. Now, whether you're a seller, a renter, or just keeping an eye on the market, what they do could hit your wallet and your neighborhood pretty hard. So let's start with just how big they are. Okay, first, you got to get your head around the sheer scale we're talking about. Blackstone is managing over $1 trillion in assets. And get this, within that massive number, they have a stake in at least 274,000 rental units. That makes them one of the biggest landlords in America, period. And a jaw-dropping $315 billion of that is just in real estate. So yeah, this isn't some side project for them, it's their main game. Okay, so how do they take all that cash and turn it into even more cash? Well, it's not just luck. They've got a playbook. It's clear, it's repeatable, and man, is it effective. It really boils down to this powerful three-step process. See, they don't just pick up one house here or there. No, they buy up entire portfolios at scale. And they do it in markets that are just booming with jobs and people. Next, they pour a ton of money into those properties to make them worth more. And then, the final step, they cash out by selling, or they hold on for that sweet long-term rental income. Sounds simple, right? But when you do it at their scale, it's a total game changer. So what does adding value really mean? You know, when they say that, it's not just a fresh coat of paint. We're talking real, tangible stuff. New elevators, modern lobbies, they'll even reconfigure a whole apartment just to squeeze in another bedroom. And the whole thing is run by this super efficient, data-driven system that's all about maximizing every single dollar and, you guessed it, justifying those higher rents. All right, so let's see how this playbook actually works in the real world. Because, a strategy on paper is one thing, but it's totally different when you're talking about a massive New York City apartment complex versus a bunch of single-family homes down in the Sunbelt. We're going to dive into two really key examples here. First up, we've got the legendary Stuyvesant town in Manhattan, and then we'll look at their major strategic pivot back into the single-family rental market all across the U.S. Storytown, it's just a perfect case study. Blackstone scooped up this city within a city back in 2015, but oh boy, it was not a simple buy and hold. They slammed right into New York's super strong tenant protection laws. This kicked off a huge legal fight over rent-stabilized units, which, by the way, ended with the court siding with the tenants. It's such a clear example of where their profit-first model clashes with real-world politics and regulations. And these numbers, they really tell the story, the two sides of the coin here. I mean, on one hand, you have a massive $425 million investment that slashed maintenance times by 65%. That's impressive. But on the other hand, that same investment helped push the rent for a regular one-bedroom apartment to over $4,700 a month. So yeah, they added value, but that value definitely comes with a hefty price tag. Okay, now let's switch gears to single-family homes, because here, their playbook has really evolved. They were basically pioneers after the 2008 crash, creating that rental giant, Invitation Homes. Then they got out of that business, sold it off, but then they made a really strategic comeback in 2021. And then they went all in 2024, snapping up Tricon Residential to scale up their home portfolio again. So, okay, that's the how. But the big question is why? Why this huge pushback into housing right now? And honestly, the answer isn't that complicated. It all boils down to the most basic rule in economics: supply and demand. And here's the absolute crucial point. Demand for housing, thanks to more jobs and more people, is just through the roof. It's super strong. But as you can see right here, the supply of new homes, we're talking new construction, building permits, it's not keeping up, not even close. And that creates this huge gap in the market. And this quote from MetLife's analyst just hits the nail on the head. Think about it. When it costs more to build a brand new house than it does to just buy an existing one, the value of all the homes already out there just skyrockets. This whole imbalance creates the absolute perfect storm for a huge investor like Blackstone to swoop in, buy up existing houses, and just ride that wave of rising prices. Okay, so we've covered the who, the what, and the why of Blackstone's strategy. But look, none of that really matters unless we connect it back to you. What does all this billion-dollar maneuvering actually mean for you? whether you're trying to sell your home or you're a renter. Okay, if you're a home seller, especially in one of these hot growth markets, listen up. This could be a huge opportunity. These big institutional buyers, they tend to push the whole market up. They raise the price ceiling. So here's the pro tip. Use their freshly renovated properties as your comps. Use them to justify a higher asking price for your own place. And if your home is turnkey, move-in ready, shout that from the rooftops in your listing. That is exactly what these big funds are looking for. Now for renters, the story is, well, it's a bit more complicated. Yeah, you might get a nice new lobby or faster repairs, which is great, but you have got to be ready for some serious rent hikes when your lease comes up for renewal. It is so important to stay on top of your local tenant protection laws. Know your rights, especially if you happen to live in a rent-controlled or rent-stabilized unit. And all this really leaves us with a pretty provocative final question to chew on. As all this money keeps pouring in and consolidating who owns our homes, especially in big cities, it completely changes the power dynamic of the market. And it makes you ask, when one landlord basically owns a city, who's really setting the price? Look, Blackstone's strategy is a massive signal flare showing exactly where the smart money is going in real estate. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve and track these huge market shifts with real, data-driven analysis, you need to go to realestaterankiq.com and subscribe. We've got the insights you need